Sunday evenings to Live. How do you listen? Fire. Check out feettothefireradio.com. Now broadcasting live with archives kept in HD video on our YouTube channel and with high-quality audio only at Spreaker.com. The views expressed in the following show are of the host, the guest, and the callers. The content of the following show, its accuracy, authenticity, and the ramifications of the use or application of said content is the responsibility of those speaking and listening, not the broadcast medium. All right, we're back, and we're live, Feet to the Fire. I'm your host, James Othienchik, the Black Knight of Talk Radio. Richard Allen Miller will be here at the bottom of the hour. So that is the whole major portion of the show. We do have a commentary from Less Visible. If you would like to comment, ask questions of Richard Allen Miller, you could do so through email, and that would be probably on the bottom here somewhere as it's scrolling past, James at feettothefireradio.com. Excuse me, I'm having terrible gastrical problems here, so not real pleasant at the moment. You can also do email, or I said email, you can also do the chat room, which there's an automatic chat room both on the Spreaker system and on YouTube Live. So that's going. We're gonna have some trouble here today. Richard L. Miller's not feeling that well either. He's a real trooper. I almost wanted to cancel the show because he's not feeling very well, and I didn't want to sit here with him for an hour or two. But he's like, no. Wants to do it. So we'll get to him at the bottom of the hour. He is, synchronistically, he is tomorrow going in for a test that I'm going in for on the next day. So, colonoscopy buddies, huh? I guess you had blood brothers. You have colonoscopy brothers. Is that gonna be it? But he's got a problem. They're looking into mine is the problem supposedly is past, and they're just going into, in fact, they're going to put some markers in there, and so I guess I'll be able to say I have a tattoo. I just can't show it to you. So that is that. I want to talk about some of the things in the news prior to Richard coming at the bottom of the hour. Let me go to the webpage deal here. There we go. Oh, that's Richard's picture, which isn't there yet, so let me turn that off. There is Malcolm X is one of these guys that I would love to be alive now to be able to be a commentator of what's going on, because he apparently solved rather well. You're not going to see Malcolm quoted from the black community or the white community, the liberal community or the conservative, because he saw through all of it. And so I purchased access to this complete Malcolm X. Well, it's a donation, actually. I got to find the link because it's all online. But this Kickstarter came across my email, which this guy is putting together everything that Malcolm X has ever said or done, wrote, or what have you, and it'll be available via this system. So I wanted to support that because it's pretty good stuff. He really had a handle on things. That's probably why he was killed, of course, because he wasn't going through wasn't doing his part in the system. I wrote some quotes here. I'll get to the reason why I'm doing this quote, but how does one support one's assertions without proving? Without providing facts, historical facts, or history of some type, or an audit trail of critical thinking. You quote anonymous inside sources while calling your detractors CIA assets and shills. That is what it's come down to now. Whoops, I skipped past some things here. It's not coming down to it now. It's always been there, but it's really disgusting. Besides having all these gastric problems, I'm utterly disgusted in what the alternative media has become. Well, all media has become, for that matter. But now we have a split going, which is predictable in around the QAnon community. I have mentioned that last week was the cutoff date for me dealing with QAnon, and I'm not going to go into it now, other to say that Corsi, who was a big supporter of QAnon, has now reversed his position. Jones has his too. However, Alex, I think, got on the bandwagon to get hits, and now it's getting off the bandwagon, and people are saying, well, that Corsi got thrown off by Q because he's selling his books and all that. Let me ask you something out there. This is really nutty. I understand that if you're going to be talking about some kind of truth or some kind of political commentary, that when you have sponsors, I mean, I understand that the sponsors may limit what you're going to say. I mean, look at YouTube has demonetized many people because they haven't agreed politically. And if you have sponsors, this has happened in the mainstream media many times. They were going to do an expose on some type of pharmaceutical or something, and then the major companies which own each other, there's, Monsanto owns like half the world, they'll start to pull off sponsorship unless you drop it, and then the corporate drops it, and then, I get that. I mean, I get it. Alex Jones needs to sell things and keep a system going, but what is the alternative? What do you do? Do you have people who are going to be just independently wealthy and be able to provide the service free of charge? Are you going to have a subscription only so people who will subscribe to it will get the information? Or are you going to have people who give out free and yet people will then subscribe to it? Let me tell you, that last one doesn't work. So, I mean, you're in a system where you're going to go, yeah, I don't want to have the people corrupted by sponsorship. And in the same breath, how do you pay for it? Nothing is free. This is not free. I'm doing this because I want to. I'm paying for it. There are people who do give donations, and I appreciate it. It's not enough to pay for it, but it's still nice. It's nice. And I'm not asking for it. All right? I mean, I'm not asking for it like I'm not going to go, well, next week if I can't make it. If I can't make it, I'm gone. And if I can, I'm here. And that's what it is. But how does Corsi has done so much work that is so good. He came out with the definitive scientific proof that the Obama birth certificate was fake. I saw his presentation. I saw the work. It is undeniable, 100% proven scientifically, forensically, that the birth certificate was faked. Even found the birth certificate that they used as a model to fake the new one from. I mean, it's fantastic work, right? Had to comb through all these birth certificates to find the right one. I mean, to find one that matches, if it was. And so Corsi went into following QAnon. I mentioned about David Seaman as well, who is doing work on Pettigate, a.k.a. Pizzagate, and was tossed off his mainstream job for it. These individuals wanted to believe and followed this Q. I didn't like it from the get-go because it has the same earmarks that I've seen in Planet X and all this stuff. I don't want to go over this again. I've done it before. People who disagree with me, and I don't want to keep hammering on it. And people who agree. So there's not a lot of worth to go through this. But what I don't understand is people are calling Corsi a shill because he's selling a book. Do you want him to go out and drive a truck like me so I can do a small little show a week? and do a quarter or a tenth of what I could be doing. I mean, do you want him to go do that? So then he could say, well, then he doesn't have anybody on his back because he's. I mean, I don't understand this. I mean, yeah, I know. And I know there are people, and I have not liked Alex Jones' hyperbole because he's, everything is the end of the world and stuff because it's get people to tune in. I mean, I understand that, but what is the alternative? You want someone to be able to have deep pockets who will come here and do the work and put the stuff out here and not owe anybody anything. I mean, can you make it any more restrictive? So on one hand, yeah, I criticize people who make money on the truth. On the other hand, how do you pay to research into and provide the truth? I mean, one of the guys who's doing a real good job is has made a deal with Dash, the digital cash. Of course, I can't think of his name now because I'm seeing his face, Ben Swan. All right, he was doing good work on mainstream, got fired because he went into Pizzagate. Now he's on his own and he's doing good work. But someone's got to pay for it. So that's the problem we're at here now. And you have QAnon who's out there just saying stuff, just saying stuff, and people are believing him and criticizing Corsi, who has done many books. And I don't know. It's just not a bad day not a good day for me today. I started out very good, and it just went downhill. I mean, I have other stuff in the background. I don't want to sit and complain. I went and bought this used bass amp to start recording on, and I went and got my bass worked on. I got a luthier who is from Brickenbacker, and I get the thing and plug it in. It buzzes just like the day he used a different jack. There's two jacks in a Rick. He used the other one. So I did all of that stuff, and it still buzzes. And then I play the amp today, and it keeps turning itself off. I mean, it's like the one thing I want to do is record the music, and now that's all shot, and I got to go back to, and I work 5 days a week. I can't go in and bring a guitar until next Saturday. But if next Saturday's nice, I'll be driving out on a bike, so I can't bring the guitar in. I got to call the guy I bought the amp from and say, hey, do you know this thing's turning off? It's apparently overheating. Oh, it worked fine with me, And so then I spend half the day this morning answering and talking about this QAnon stuff, and I'm done with it. If I got upset. Heartburn. I'm going to have to try and get some Tums. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to have to go into my drinking this stuff, but we got a bunch of people in the chat room talking here. I can't really see. It's another thing. All of a sudden this eye is not working right. And there's some kind of a floater or something that's in there, and I know it's a hard time to read. And then Richard Miller's sick, too. It's like, this is going to be a fun show, huh? Yeah, now, we got people talking about Q as a distraction and so on. Like, yeah, it is. And another thing is, I stopped a while ago looking into Q and so on, but there's people putting out YouTube's videos, and they're hour and a half long about this, and I've watched a couple try to, and I got to turn it off. They've been an inspiration for me to try to get to the point on my show because they just go on about this and on and on. All right, so I don't want to keep going involved in this because I don't want my existence to be considered like I'm here to answer against Q. I'm not. I'm not. Okay, so, but I wanted to talk about it, that the problem with anything is that when we go out and look for information, where we have our own bias, we have our own desires, we have our own safety mechanisms, and when something that you believe so deeply is true and you get information against it, there's two options. You can look deeper into it and find out and change your point of view, or you can then shoot the messenger, try to disprove the messenger. And it is classic cases here, classic stuff. There's you have the people saying that, oh, this person's a shill or this person's a whatever, and I'm just getting tired of it. It's not worth I have a little time throughout the week, and I want to spend it going over this other stuff. So I'm sorry. I don't mean to sound, I don't know. I don't mean to be bitching. So, but let me get some of this stuff done before Richard comes here. I mentioned this. I put this on Twitter. I mean, Assange is now being told he can't get any information. He can't talk. He can't get incoming. They're putting the pressure on him. And the guy has no proof that he had participated in the acceptance of secret top secret material or hacked material, though it was clearly, I think it was somebody who leaked it, and he's trying to be held for it. So you have essentially a newspaper, an online system releasing this stuff, which has been shown in court already to be fine, and yet he's being held hostage from this, and it's outrageous. I haven't actually got a chance to look at this. Trump released a blueprint for lower drug prices, so it'd be interesting to understand. I passed it along, and I'm interested to go through it because of Trump's background in business and whatnot. We'll see how it is to work. I mean, I do notice that if you go to India, for example, they're still selling the drugs in India. They're just cheaper, much cheaper. So I don't. I'll be interested to look at that. I'm trying to look at what else. All right, there's this video I put up. This guy, Mr. Gunk, is his name in YouTube. He's I don't know why his channel hasn't been banned, because he's really into going after the Pettigate, Pizzagate, the whole 9 yards. And now he has talked about this NXIVM cult. And his stuff is blunt, it's direct, and it's strong. I mean, there's tough language in there, and it's not for the faint-hearted. But I would recommend you I'll put the links below as usual. I'd recommend you guys check it out and check him out. Though it's tough stuff, but we're talking about the worst thing on the planet that humans do to one another is this trafficking and whatnot, as sex slavery, child sex slavery, adrenochrome and all this stuff is the worst thing ever, and so you got to deal with it. And I wanted to talk about this guy, Mr. Gunk, while he's still around. I mean, it's I don't even know why legally he's not nailed, because the stuff he's saying, granted, there's proof to it, but anyway, back, very important, Mueller had indicted, I think it was 12 or 13 Russian companies or individuals who interfered in the election, as he put it, which is kind of funny because they bought Facebook ads totaling about $100,000, if I'm correct, and whereas the Democratic Party spent about $1 billion. Anyway, I got a link to Bill Still, his piece on this. One of those companies decided to show up in court, sent a team of lawyers over, and they showed up in court, and in essence, Mueller was not ready to prosecute this. Presumably, he thought none of them would show up because of the possibility of them being arrested. I don't know, whatever. Well, one of the companies sent over a team of lawyers, and he wanted to get a continuance, and the judge says, nah, you indicted them. I mean, you got the stuff. You're ready to go. Let's start the ball rolling. Plus, one of the other companies who has been indicted was didn't exist during the time frame that they were indicted for doing these things. So it's really it's such a knucklehead sideshow that I can't. It's really this is the time of the revealing. In that, I think God is showing how stupid we are, how foolish we are, and revealing these things on the open and can't be hidden anymore. probably thanks to the internet and other things. And it's you have to watch this stuff. You have to watch what you're doing. You have to watch what you're thinking, you're saying, you're believing. It's going to be introspection to everybody as well as to people. What's going on here? So they showed up. I could just see Mueller going, "Huh? They're actually here? What? Wait? Huh?" Well, anyway, I hit too far here now. I'm going to have to go back. All right, so here's a doctor who is putting it on the line about these brain impairment and withdrawal and so forth. It's September 16, 2015 is the video, but you really need to watch this video to know about the drugs that people are taking, the antidepressants, the anti-anxiety drugs are damaging brains, and when people get off them, following their doctor's procedures, damage the brain more, and then they spend like huge sections of their life trying to repair it. You might be susceptible with the term called echinacea, where you can take a drug that maybe doesn't affect somebody else, but it affects you. So now you're having all these side effects. It's unbelievable, and the way that they're going to deal with it, they being the medical establishment and the government, is pretty much write off these people and move on and change the laws for future people while dropping these people and throwing them under the bus. So it's a very good argument. Bitcoin is going back up again, as well as the other cryptos. There's an article I have here, wealthy are hoarding $10 billion in Bitcoin bunkers. But the point that I'm getting at, and I don't have maybe I can find it real quick. Coin. Yeah, maybe it'll just show the charts. Yeah. We're starting to go back up again. Let me go back to one day. You see, we're starting what is happening if you go back over a month. I actually have to go farther. Let's go a year. This was the end of the year, the big thing, and you could see the downward trend overall. And it got down, and it started to work back up again. It has a downward trend, but as you look into the last week, we think it's going back again. Unfortunately, it's $8,600 was almost $20,000. So I guess that would have been the great time to sell. But what I think is happening, I just throw this out there for what it's worth, is I didn't have the right. Here we go. What I think is happening as we go for the year is people are selling them, taking the profit, of course, from way back when it was down here, and it's trying to shake them loose. So you have we got them down to here. Okay, we'll buy some more. Oh, we shake them loose, buy some more, shake them loose, buy some more. And that's what I think is happening on that. I'm sure I'll get an email from Ray, who's showers me in Bitcoin stuff. And, I appreciate it, but hold on. Gosh, what are we doing here now? Is that the problem with this stuff is nobody knows because it's not comparable to anything ever in history. Yeah, I want to mention this C60. We talked to Richard Miller a long time ago about the buckyball, as he puts it. It's really good stuff, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to get any. I really should get it because it's design of it. It's the ultimate in antioxidant and toxin remover by its design, because carbon is a great attractor of ways to hook. I mean, that's why you have carbon, you have organic chemistry. I mean, you have like the huge area of organic chemistry is based all on carbon base, and you have all of life being carbon base. So you send a C60 ball carbons into your system, and it just, each of those 60 carbons attached to whatever, which will clean out your system. Not to mention the ball inside is a way to trap things in there. Even radiation particles, I am being told, can be absorbed So it's really the greatest thing ever. And they suspend it in olive oil. Because, I mean, you're talking about one atom, one molecule, 60 atoms, but one molecule is one piece of powder. So when you buy the stuff, I mean, how do you look at one atom? One molecule. Granted, 60 atoms is, let's say, not a small molecule, like water's only 3 atoms, but it has to be distributed in the olive oil so your body can take it in. So it's a really good thing, and I would recommend people do it. Let me put it this way, I would like to do it, and so I can't recommend anything. I recommend you check it out, and it's up to you if you want to do it, but so that was going on in the chat room, so I wanted to mention it. What? How did this happen? I don't know how my name got in there. Must be because I shared it. I don't know how I put my name in there, but this is a golf thing out in Montana where the golf high school association says, no, you can't have parents watch their kids play golf. And it's been going on and on and on. And everybody, the golf pros, the golf associations, the parents, everybody involved thinks this is ridiculous. Many golf pros have got involved. The pro golf associations, the college associations, all say this is ridiculous. And yet this Montana situation says, no, we can't let parents come on the field to see their kids play golf, which is like, I don't even understand it. And I thought they could just get rid of these, vote them out and get rid of them. But it's not the school board. It's the group that the school board has organized their school school sports. So it's ridiculous. Yeah. Now, going back to this Q thing, check out the David Seaman's commentary. I am not talking about David Seaman or Corsi as far as individual people. I'm just talking about the work that they have done. And now you have anonymous guy or group or whatever saying stuff, yet these people have lived their life out in front of your face and provided this stuff. So this is the part that bothers me. People will there's a lot of stuff going on about Mueller. I'll just put that down under. I'm looking at the time. It's almost Miller time. So let me just. Here's another example. Syrian support Assad, but the BBC won't report it. Baroness tells RT, this is the narrative that's going on. I'm trying to look into the chat room there, but I can't see too well. So let me get ready for Richard Allen. I may have to readjust things. I think I got it, though. I think I got the system. So I also want to mention that I'm probably going to play a song in the beginning because a lot of people show up later, maybe 10, 15 minutes 10 minutes into it, let's say 5 to 10 minutes into it, and I end up repeating myself. So I think I might start it out with like a bumper music while people are tuning in live. And if you are listening to this in a delayed format, you can simply fast forward it a little bit to it. So, righty. I can't really read in the chat. It's Miller time. So let me give him a call, and I'm going to wait to. Richard Allen Miller, you are live on the air, so I just want to let you know I'm waiting for your picture to show up, and bing, bang, boom, here is the man, Richard Allen Miller, live. We have the various websites will be coming up underneath his name, I highly recommend people go there. He's got all kinds of stuff he's written. He's even done ebooks to try and keep the cost down, and yet every dime does help the man who is putting this information out. We were talking earlier, Richard, about people complaining about paying for information. And I'm thinking, like, well, what do you want? You want someone to, like, starve to death while they're giving you stuff free? And so, and it wasn't referring to you, it was referring to, in general, Corsi, for example, is one of the people who was doing books, and they were saying that that is a shill because he's making money on writing books, and it's like, I don't know what people expect. It gets me kind of aggravated. But anyway, welcome to the show, Richard.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm 74, and because I was Navy intelligence, I get Social Security. That's my only source of income. And today I have no reserves. So sale of my books are my only source of income. I don't travel. I don't have any way to travel, actually. So I'm not trying to make a big deal about it. My needs are very simple. And I'm not a big deal about my books. I don't mass produce them. I'm a small mom and pop organization, and everything that comes out of my home is autographed, which means that when Amazon or others are selling my books, they're not coming from me. And how does that work? I don't know. I have been ill, and so I haven't, at some point it just depresses you. It's not about intellectual property. It's like, that's my source of income. And so I went from being a normal, living fairly okay, to now I'm struggling and have less than, well, it doesn't matter. I'm down to a place where I'm going to have to go back to work. Now, there's a local Bi-Mart that said that I can be hardware clerk. And I may have to do that, actually. It's extremely unfortunate. There are, on Amazon alone, there are at least 6 different publishers that are mass producing my work. And I haven't seen a dime from any of that. So I have no idea what to do next. To hire a lawyer, I don't have the money to do that. That's how broke I am. So, but I love to write, and I have 30 manuscripts available for press. And so I am now actively seeking patrons that would like to get their name in my book with special thanks, and a return of their money and 10% for off of first sales. And anyone that's interested in that, I have a list of titles that I'd like to publish. And each book will cost around, after I'm finished writing it, will cost about $5,000 for a layout, proofing, artwork, and that kind of thing, cover. And beyond that, I'm available for workshops, and I really miss that the last time I was in Chicago and I got a chance to spend some time with you. That was very special. And that's how I am right now. I'm ill. I'm going in for a colon test, and we'll stay tuned on how I do. Depression is not a very lovely emotion. I don't think it's very healthy to be depressed. So that's it. That's the State of the Union. What would you like to talk about tonight?
Well, I actually kind of mentioned this as being completely open, and I'm hoping that I'll get email. The chat room is filling up with people. If people have questions directly for you, they can put them in the chat room. If they would, I don't know, make them capital or something so I can catch my eye, they could do it.
Yeah, I wanted to say I'm blessed in many, many ways. To be as knowledgeable as I am is kind of a blessing, but I'm lucky. I don't have a drive to make money as much as I do to understand things. And from that point of view, I think I'm blessed. And I'm now discovering that where one's limitations lie are actual blessings and can be used as tools. The simple one I use about anger, for example, if you're angry, I can use that emotion to clean a floor better than anybody I know. Yeah, that's where our blessings lie, is in our limitations. And I'm now beginning to understand how that works. And like to share some of that sometime.
Somebody had mentioned in the chat room the diamond body.
The diamond body. I wrote a book with Iona years ago on the work I did with video and audio feedback systems. And there's 3 books, actually, and the diamond body was the first. It was based on Buckminster Fuller's information and the work I did with Buck, and then how I applied that to information theory on the way the brain moves information around. And that diamond body, electromagic, and yogatronics. And it's on video feedback systems, the next stage in evolution and consciousness, if you will. It's a way of, I wrote another paper with Iona called the dodecahedral universe. And it was based on that work I'd done for the military on the diamond body. But basically, it's the way the universe expands itself, the diamond body. Yeah, I can give you a copy of that if you'd like to upload it. That's in one of the books. Those are 3 books that are available for a patron.
Okay, that's actually somebody asked about this, how to help with your publishing. Is there a page or something? A patron? Let's see.
Yeah, no, I'm more private in that regard. I've been very blessed with individuals trying to help me with my GoFundMe account, but really, I'm not interested in money. What I would like to do is get my books in print, and if I can do that, I will acknowledge the people that help me on that, and they will get a return of 10% of their investment addition on first sales of the books. And
so they should basically just get in touch with you if they want to be part of that.
Yeah, and they just contact me via email or telephone. I'm here. I'm always here, and I don't know why I seemingly can remember and connect dots. I just wrote the last book I've completed, The Non-Local Mind in a Holographic Universe. Chapter 7 is in 10 parts, and it's called Time Travel and the True Nature of Cavitation. And 3 of those 10 parts appeared in Nexus magazine as titled The Illusion of Reality. And I have made some discoveries on what happens at the moment and the moment just after death in consciousness. And basically that book sequels the Power Tools book that was recently published, and has a way to change the movie. And I'm trying to output that information in physical application to myself. Stay tuned on how well I do that.
Changing the movie. That's an interesting phrase.
The big picture. You know, when it's pretty awful when you start to realize that we're probably living in some kind of a simulation created by our future. You know, it's an interesting proposition. And at the moment of death, man is given, and this came from Zen Gardner. I really, no matter what else has happened to him, I care about that person. He was a better writer than I am. And he was the one that first alerted me to the Bordeaux Thadal. And the last choice man is given at the moment of death, you have a tunnel of light with all your friends waving at you to come back and, you know, join them, or you have the blue light. And the tunnel of light reminds me of the birth canal and the fact that time is not real. It's a cavitation process, very similar to the way we have 2 brains, physics and religion. And closed system, and probably unique for each individual person because of the individual choices that they make at any given moment, creating what we call the multiverse. And I'm trying to model this in a manner that will allow me then to apply it to my life and change what is actually the way I experience what I'm experiencing. Yeah.
Well, how does it apply to what's going on now? We have this terrible turmoil in the world and the planet, whether it be from politics or war or what have you. I mean, how does one look out into the world through these eyes, these diamond body eyes, and say, look, I want to change the movie and all that? I mean, is it, do we have to change the movie collectively, or can an individual decide to, just step out?
We have a choice on seeing whether our glass is half full or half empty. Mine, I believe, is probably in certain categories overflowing. I'm very blessed in that regard. The end of days, the Aborigines are now talking about the wave and the end of days. And of course, their predictions are more accurate than any tribe in world history, to include Hopi or the Inuit. Their history spans longer distances, and they are saying that there is the end of days. There's going to be a large conference over in Brisbane in that regard in the next 2 months with Nexus Magazine. And I'm not able to attend it because of my health and things, but I'm going to say that rather than looking at the end of days as the end of things, man has always survived, and what we have now is an opportunity. And this place with the horror on Elm Street going on, it isn't real. And we have been invaded by something. And I don't know how to describe or articulate that as a scientist, other than that's what made us God's favored. We have a choice in choosing what we perceive and why. And right now, there is a catharsis about to happen with man. And that, for me, is an opportunity, because change is the rule. You can count on that part. Always we're in change. I was interested in the fourth genome in our blood and what it actually represented. And I had the opportunity to spend a little time with the Dalai Lama, who has genetic memory. And what's the difference between him and me? And there's nothing different. And we all have access to our memories as structured water in a microtubule. I believe that I studied with Roger Penrose, and he wrote the geometric universe, and then proceeded to suggest that the soul is actually a physical representation of the soul would be structured water in a microtubule that leaves at the moment of death, leaves the body. There is a 5-gram weight loss at the very moment of death in animals as well. And Sir Roger Penrose has suggested that that might be structured water. Now, the structure in water is another chapter in my non-local book, because I had the very good fortune of working under Jerry Pollack back in the 70s. And basically, the amount of information that is stored in the memory of water, what they call the memory of water, or exclusion zone water, easy water, is 1 million times more efficient than our current computer chips with gallium arsenide, the forbidden zone that forms that checksum error register between the touching of one metal to another. I'm very excited because I believe that all of us have access to past and future lives. I think that's where it's all stored, is in that structure of water and the memory they call memory water. When water touches anything, it changes it. That's why the leading edge of a wave is moving faster, because it's touching air, than the wave itself. And that work right now being studied by Mark LeClaire and others at MIT as a physical example of cold fusion. And so I'm going to try to see if there is some mental ways I can imprint or elucidate that in my behavior to be able to step outside of space and time. I know that I can do that with breath control, and I've written about that in terms of how I train Navy SEALs. But it's my opinion that magic is going to be the next direction in physics, the study of altered states, and what you can do in these altered states that you are not able to do in a conscious waking state. And basically, I've seen examples, witnessed them, where a woman can have the strength of 10 people ripping a car door off to save her daughter, when in fact that's physically impossible. The bone in her body would shatter, and has, but not in certain circumstances. And so, just a moment, I'm going to have to let them know that I'm currently on radio and I can't take any calls. Thank you. And so basically, I have to do this. Everybody's calling me all the time. I've been sick, and so I haven't been answering phone calls, but that would have continued ringing, so I didn't want to interfere. That's, I guess, what I wanted to say is it's an attitude. Oh, have I got a great one to read to you at some point on the importance of attitude? Attitude is what makes us uniquely different. And I love this old saying, there's nothing but attitude that makes the change in reality. So.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering how much individual autonomy one has in the universe, in life, in the world, versus the collective, well, let's say, oppressing against you. I mean, I wonder if...
Oh, I see where you're going. Well, no. It's actually the opposite. The archetypal plane where I am you and you are me and I am the walrus. If I've got it, you've got it, by definition, which means that if I'm waking up, we are all waking up, including the bushes. So, there are individuals in our universe that may not be human, in which case they're fighting us, like we talk about reticulin, the lizards, and to serve man. I think I actually have seen some stuff from the Clintons that would suggest that they are no longer human. I don't know how you feel about Trump, but at least he's a nationalist and has done more in keeping our country safe than anybody in previous. I
agree, totally.
He's qualified to run this country, but can you imagine what would have happened if Clinton had been elected? The first thing she would have done was appoint her husband head of the UN. And now we would have had the two most powerful couples in the world reporting directly to Bush. And that's crazy. I don't know what to say about any of this and what a Democrat is or a Republican anymore. I'm not sure what that all means anymore. I don't think it has meaning. I posted something this morning about what the federal government is and what it is not. And I found that individual, found in the middle of nowhere, interviewed by Mike from, where was he? Boston. He's riding around in his car. He interviewed this guy, and the guy is just incredibly knowledgeable on what a government is and what it is not. The way he articulated it, I had to post it. It was wonderful. And Boston, yeah, Mike from Boston. But anyway, I'm just a nerd and can talk about things like video feedback systems. Controlling altered states of consciousness is a natural process that we have assumed is not able to be aware. That's what biofeedback originally was, is to learn how to control heart rate, pulse, respiration. Imagine what you could do if you could, at will, and with intent release specific neurotransmitters in the brain. That is the next stage of evolution in man. And that's what I write about in the non-local mind. How to identify that, that chill that goes up and down the spine, which is dimethyltryptamine. There is other neurotransmitters. The lysergic acid amide, the AHA, is the neurotransmitter that connects dots. And when you have an aha moment where you connect one dot with another, and it turns out that my research suggests that connecting dots is arbitrary, which means imagination is a reality. And that will be the next stage in man's evolution in consciousness, to be able to connect these dots any way you choose to, and uniquely so from someone else.
I was busy coughing. I was busy coughing my brains out over here. I had the mic off, and I was.
I know you were ill, George.
I'm actually tearing up. I was coughing so hard.
Yeah.
So
the weather's changing. There is absolutely no question that something else is happening. We can no longer predict the weather. Australia has now become our Mediterranean. You know, it's the equator. And that means there's been a pole shift. And the weather changes. I have a friend in New Jersey that said, quote, if you're going to buy a snowplow, make sure it has a cab. I love it. You got it. You got the big thing. Yeah, I know you've been ill as well as me. I'm going into the hospital in the morning, and I guess you go in on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's going to be. Won't be in the hospital itself. They were actually booked up, but there's a facility that does this kind of stuff.
I see. I'm going to the hospital. Yeah.
And I'm, I'm going to go there. You know, this is probably going to bore people to death, but I mean, I call up the place and they want me to pull over and give me information, and you're going to have to write this stuff down before you can come in here, and and so what did they have me do? What was so much they had to be here by 8 o'clock? Be here by 8 o'clock. That what, you couldn't tell me that while I was driving? And they won't accept this and that. You can't drive there. You can't take a taxi there. Someone has to come there and stay with you and bring you back. And it's
they get drugs, yeah.
I know, but why couldn't I bring somebody with who doesn't drive? We take a taxi or an Uber there. We take an Uber home. I got a person with. No, you can't do that. We won't do the test then. And I came this close. We're going like, then we're not going to do it. Fine. Forget it.
Why don't you live in a more rural community where medicine is really broken, and I'll show you how that goes down. Yeah. I have a Seventh-day Adventist doctor that's trying to put me on meds. I won't do that. No. And so he's ready to fire me. I came into his office for a checkup, and my heart rate was at 151 over 84 or something like that. And he said, I'm going to have to put you on meds. You're 74 years old, and the norm from the American Medical Society says you should be at 131. And I said, cuff me. Now, that's what I could do with biofeedback, and I put it at 129. And I can do that at will. And what I want to do is even more. As a SEAL, I was able to train people to do that. And now I'm going to try to change the way I perceive reality out here. And I think I can do that now. And I'm going to, if I can do it, anybody can do it. It's not about like ESP. It's not gifted people. It's just paying attention to what's important. Your gut is an enteric nervous system. It's a hierarchy of organisms that are outside space-time, just like the soil and what we call microrasia. It's a quantum computation algorithm and consciousness. And there's examples of the Earth dialoguing with itself, just like we do, self-organizing. So I'm not worried about what other people think. I'm worried about what I think. That's where it all starts. internal. And I hope everybody gets that concept, because you have the right. And that's something that God gave you as his favored choice.
How do you think the life here on Earth is structured? I mean, is there a hierarchy? Do I have the right to go shoot a deer in the head and eat it? I mean, is there karmic ramifications? I mean, is there spirits in trees? I mean, how does all that stuff work out, do you think?
You mean, is there a food chain? Yeah, even in Jupiter Rising, the science fiction movie, at the end of the movie, the emperor of the universe is saying, yeah, it's all about food chain. Bob Dylan saying it best. Everybody's got to serve somebody. I have watched 2 cetacean, extremely highly evolved mammals, orca chasing dolphin for food. So it's about food chain and self-organization. Isn't it interesting that everything you eat becomes you? I don't know. I
mean, cause here. I mean, just throw this out here, because my way of thinking is that as your consciousness has more access to more information, and let's just assume, for the sake of discussion, that humans are at the top of that particular area, right? As you get more, could be a dog eat dog world until the dog realizes the importance of not continuing that system and rising above it. And
there's a science fiction story written by Simak called City, about when the dogs take over the Earth because humans have moved and evolved onward. And but candidly, there are 4 cetacean on this planet that, in my humble opinion, are more evolved technically than man. Orca, for example, has a cerebral cortex. It's twice the size of man, and that mammal's firing 60% of it, not 10. Now, that would suggest that mammal is God and capable of going places in the universe that man has not even the ability to grasp. And the bottlenose dolphin, I've been in tanks with them where I did studies. I first had my encounters with John Lilly when they brought me in to Carl Sagan brought me in to study the dolphin and determine whether or not their clicks and whistles was a form of a language. And it took me only about 10 days of doing some mapping where I came out to realize that the dolphin's language is far more complex than our own, maybe at least 10 times as complex. It's a form of Clifford algebra than Hebrew. Avram Moles has written a book on that called Aesthetic Perception and Information Theory, French mathematician. We don't have a clue where we are in the food chain here. I can tell you that this nonsense that we're doing, the Earth is about to localize the infection, and we can call that part the end of days.
I have a question in the chat room. You had mentioned somebody named Michael Risa or Risia. I'm assuming you had mentioned that. It says, who is Michael Risa, R-I-S-I-A or R-I-Z-I-A? I can't find any info on that name.
I can research that. There are a lot of Michaels out there. One of the Shirfim. But
well, they'll probably say something here. They'll write something in a minute to qualify it. I just thought I heard you'd mention the name and then maybe not. So now you mentioned about the Earth localizing and all that. How does how does that? I mean, I personally have a working theology and cosmology that I adhere to unless something comes by that's better.
Yeah,
and I do have the planets being live, but it seems to me like they are on a higher dimensional plane, and so what we see, let's call it 3D Earth. The 3D Earth is what we see. There's a 4D portion of Earth we don't see. There's a 5D portion of Earth, whatever. And so to me, I liken Earth being like a dog hosting fleas, so to speak, and we're living on.
That's a great analogy. I love it. Probably you're accurate in that the current forms of models on our universe string theory would ascribe 11 dimensions. And a fourth dimension is time. A fifth one might be sliders, where you have all alternate stories going on at the same time. And then a sixth dimension. It's impossible to comprehend the levels of dimensions. There is a woman, forester, up in the University of British Columbia that is suggesting that the mother tree, the oldest tree in a forest, will send out a signal through the mycorrhizae, the hierarchy in the soil, to communicate when a storm.
Well, you just hold on. You just said it again. The mycorrhizae. So you just said it.
Yes. Oh, mycorrhizae. Oh, I thought you were talking about a person. Mycorrhizae. Mycorrhizae in the soil is a hierarchy of organisms like our gut. You start off with viruses, bacteria, and then you come into smaller organisms. And what they're doing has a resonant cavity oscillation where they're moving information from one subsystem to another. That's where instinct comes from and the nature of extrasensory perception. And I've written that in my ESP book. And the first protocol, I trained Navy SEALs working with instinct. Now, the soil has mycelium, these fibers that grow out, or the mushroom. And then, of course, the fruiting cap would be what we call the mushroom, but that's just the fruiting cap for expansion. The two largest life forms on Earth are agaricus in the Blue Mountains of Oregon and up in British Columbia. They are the two largest life forms on Earth, with the third largest life form being an aspen grove down in Colorado. From space, you can see that as a single organism with awareness. And the mushroom is there first as the largest life form that we've been able to identify. Mycorrhizae is the mycelium part of being interfacing with other life forms. Like in your gut, you might have a little hydra called H. pylori that is mostly responsible for ulcers or the belief that you have an ulcer. These organisms, and there's a hierarchy of them, communicate information from one subset to the next up. And that was part of the modeling system I even used when I was doing the diamond body, and how the information is moved in a geometric universe called the dodecahedron, or diamond body. Now, it's a structure of the way information is moved from one subset to another. And that's what I'm writing about, and now trying to integrate into my personal life as a way of moving upward or downward in my awarenesses of consciousness.
All right, when you're talking about the movement of information, I think of that when you say movement of information, it's like, what time is it? Oh, it's 12:30. What information are you talking? What is moved? What information is moved?
Information is not what we normally would think of it. We started with a quantum universe. This is where we went from analog to digital. And when we went by doing it in steps rather than a smooth line analog, what happened is that Heisenberg then produced his uncertainty principle, which basically states that the more you know about one thing, the less you know about something else, in the way information moves from one subset to another. And because of that, we were measuring everything in a quantum universe around space and time. And basically, when you start a world model on something, you have assumed truths and definitions at first before you go into theorems, axioms, and the rest of it. And the first assumption originally was the shortest distance between 2 points was a straight line. Now we know that that's not true. That's again Sir Roger Penrose and the geometric universe, where he talks about the torus twistor in curved space. This is to be distinguished differently than Hawking's and his idea of a white and black hole. We are presuming that in the center of our galaxy, where there's this giant black hole, that it has another side to it, on the other side, a white hole. And probably the movie Interstellar best demonstrated that, where when he went through this curved space idea, he was able to talk to his daughter in the past by talking to her through time. Time, of course, being a limited, non-real thing. Now, if you assume that time is not real, that it is a duration of consciousness, pretty much like an hourglass, where you have the past flowing through the moment into the future, the choices that you have to change that cavitation, that's called the cavitation process, by the way, that concept allows a closed system where really all you have is this moment. And what you're trying to do is go from the profane into the sacred. And time itself, then, if it's not real, then a quantum universe is going to be a very limited approach toward trying to describe what consciousness is and what it is not. And so out comes the holographic model, which is more on information and the resolution of information, the idea of going from one subset of information to the next. The example I like to use is physical plane we'll call IQ, and above that is the emotional plane, how you feel about the physical plane, EQ. And that's why we have always recognized the importance of the feminine aspect of EQ, because it contained more information about the physical plane as a metaphor. Now, with that said, information is not the absolute either. It is a better model for describing consciousness, but has its own limitations. When you make it assume truth, you set up certain doors that are available to you, and then they limit the other doors that might not otherwise have been limited. That's what LSD did for me. I started to realize that some of these doors are arbitrary and predicated on my belief system. I wouldn't have seen it if I hadn't have believed it. Your upper mind, the one associated with the brain, the second brain, this one is associated with the mind, but really all it is a tool to make all your beliefs true. And where you're outside of that is with the gut, that place down below where you respond to as instinct. Usually, your first thought that arrives in your mind here is correct. And when you start to balance it is when we have statistical inference, and now you're in a limited universe with basic laws that say randomness is the rule. An extrasensory perception is when you see something laid out in front of you, and one thing leaps out as more important than all the rest of the things you're looking at. That, as a metaphor, is how your future timeline talks to the moment. And if you're able to integrate that, and that's what I'm working on right now, now you change your past. And I've got examples on how that works, because when I first started with the SEAL program out of Amherst, Navy did not have Navy SEALs. They didn't call them Navy SEALs. They were divers. And what happened was that we integrated something within ourselves, and it changed our past as Navy SEALs. But originally, SEAL Corp out of Amherst was a private corporation. And I participated in that when I was working in anesthesiology. And so it's timelines and being able to integrate those into the moment that changes everything. And stay tuned, and I'll be your doctor, Dr. Ram with a TARDIS.
Well, let me ask you, one might say, why would the future want to contact the present to change the future? But if it's kind of funny, if you can envision your future is not happening yet because we're in the process of choosing what that will be, the future could have an interest in the past, or I should say the current.
Because well, it's a closed system. You're absolutely correct.
Because it wants a certain outcome, and so it doesn't have power to do that outcome, so it reaches to the present, which has the power to make that future outcome. Am I getting that?
Yeah, the concept of information theory, though, states that if you have enough information to ask a coherent question, you have enough information to answer it. The future lies in the moment and the choices that you make. And so you have a causal system going on here that has options. And that's like a drop of water that hits a pool of water and goes poip and comes back up again as a ball of water. But it's no longer a ball of water. It's a bubble with the medium inside it trapped in a topological surface called a torus. And what surrounds it is H3O2, a very special form of water called exclusion zone water. It has to do with, that's why the C60 molecule has been so interesting. The difference in when you put 60 carbon atoms together, the space between them is 1.4 nanometers, just enough to place a single drop of water inside it, where that single drop of water is being touched on all surfaces. That is why C60 has been so important as a super antioxidant that will neutralize radiation poisoning, other kinds of unbelievable things, will actually repair fraying in your telomeres. Now that is the power of water, and when it touches something else. That's all, by the way, the non-local mind is another chapter. Interesting, isn't it? Now, the possibilities.
Now, the reason why I'm asking about this future, trying to go back to the present, and then continuing along that mindset, the past has already been made. So let's take the future, the present, and past as three aspects. All right, the past is reaching out, trying to get you to make decisions so that it will still exist. Because if you change the way you do things, you lose your past, right? Your past is no longer a hold on.
I think of it more like this, as an hourglass that's closed. And the hourglass can be larger or shorter. And what you're doing is you're trying to make it change the past by that very moment. In other words, you're trying to take the moment, extend it outward. And the more you're able to do that, that's where the profane becomes sacred and something becomes timeless.
Well, what I'm trying to get at is that
it's a closed system. The system doesn't change. It just is a larger system and it becomes more. It doesn't change, it becomes bigger.
The present is really where all the power is because when you're living in the present, you can change how you deal with things that the past is trying to get you to do. You know, like, well, you've always done this before. Keep doing that, all right? And then the future wants to change the past, so it's going, look, if I want you to change and I'm going to influence you to go to change differently, and you're like in the middle, and really...
Malcolm, yeah.
And really, the control is right now in the present. So you could.
That is correct. That is what dictates everything. Is this moment? Because in an hourglass, that's all you really have. And you have like two brains with a noodle that connects one to the other, and you have short circuits sometimes because you can't move fast enough. And that is a model or way of looking at what's going on. It's going to change. That's the current model that I'm using in the non-local mind. And why I'm doing that is because that model suggests I can change the movie as one of the doors that's available to me.
But now in the present, do you have enough information so that you can make a wise choice in changing the movie? Or do you need to consult the present and the future in order to have a better choice in the present?
The thing is, it's a definitional thing. It's not changing, actually. It's a closed system that you can expand it into something larger than what it is. And that is not changing it because it's still a closed system. And by definition, closed systems. That's like the shortest distance. I'm making a definition here. A closed system has limitations in terms of entropy. The organization of something. It's a closed system. The more you know about one thing, the less you know about something else. The information, if you can ask the right question, you already have the answer. You see, it has limitations to it, and it's quantized, going from a digital system to a fractal, if you will. That's a math that's used. And by the way, for those that are able to semi-follow my limitations with definitions, string theory has now evolved into what is called knot theory by Kaufman and others, where you take a plasma with a sheath and you tie it into a bowline or a square knot or a different kind of thing. And then when you pull on it, how space-time changes with gravity and other kinds of laws that we have measured that we are not sure what they really are, like gravity. Well, I like the graffiti one, the new definition of gravity. There's no such thing as gravity. The Earth just sucks. Well, I got to light some humor here because I'm probably losing everybody. It's a difficulty because I lack vocabulary to describe what I'm trying to conceive. Knot theory, yeah, there it is. That's him, Kaufman. Very good. Kaufman is a very interesting mathematician, and I've found his stuff to be, and knot theory, that new direction in strings. A string has a sheath to it. I remember I built the first plasma jet as my undergraduate thesis that got me noticed by old man DuPont. DuPont was there at my graduation to hire me and move me back east to do further graduate school. And at that time, he was reporting to Rockefeller. I remember that was the hierarchy. Those things have changed now. And there is a deep state thing going on that I have no idea what's going on in that regard. I just have to think they're not human.
Well, why? I mean, what would lead you to believe that? I mean, why?
Behavior and the way someone could continue. You ought to start with this guy and defining what the federal government is and what it is not, and how it's evolved or changed from George Washington to George Bush. I mean, it's really changed, and assumptions of Congress and how that all works. It used to be independent states, and now we're going to be fragmenting, most likely, into provinces, groups of states that have issues against the federal government. California and Texas are about to have, moonbeam out down there in California wants to secede from the Union. Literally.
Yeah, well,
what do you think that means? Well, the United States is possibly the biggest and worst bully in world history. And yet, I wouldn't dream of doing that kind of thing, and I'm part of it. Just say no. Like drugs, just say no. Like power corrupts, ultimate power corrupts ultimately. That's Castaneda.
Somebody's asking about easy water. Can I drop a weight into a jug of water over and over again to change it?
When water touches anything, it changes it. That's Rustom Roy's work at Penn State. He is doing homeopathy studies. The way I did it when we were SEALs, we always carried a small vial of baking soda, and we put a single pinch in the water, and all the water inside that vessel changed. And now you had water that would go into the cell rather than directly to the urine into the bladder. His work is exemplary, and Rustom Roy, Penn State University. Take a look at his studies on homeopathy. Mark LeClaire is doing similar studies in physics at MIT with cold fusion processes. When the tip of the wave is touching the air, it moves faster because it becomes H3O2. When you drop that weight you're talking about into the water, it immediately restructures everything. If you left it there, it would slowly, because of light and other things touching water, change it. But repeatedly dropping it in and out of the water, like you're suggesting, might keep a certain form of structure to it. I don't know. Water, when it touches anything, changes, and it's unique to everything that it touches. If it's touching plastic, you will note that there's no surface tension. And yet, if you use one of the metals like tellurium, the water will have such surface tension as to climb right up the wall and over the edge. Water is unique that way, and it is the smallest molecule, 1 and 6, in the periodic chart that will create a dipole moment. Helium does not. For example, He2, it will not form a dipole moment. That is that dipole moment where you have levorotary going to para or ortho water that will make a dimensional gate and moving to the next level of resonance in a fractal system of mathematics. And that's why I'm using that system and why I originally proposed a holographic concept of reality in 1972. The reason I wasn't, by the way, in Talbot's book was that all of my work was classified at the time he wrote his book around Carl Pribram and John Bohm. John Bohm's works were 10 years later on the implicate order, dealing with similar differences and different similarities. The way we would categorize a variation in something. And that is limited to our concepts of being human.
So, I mean, what we talked about your wrong button. You talked about some of the behaviors of beings in this world and being negative and all that. They're probably not human. So, does it mean that non-humans are bad? I mean, No.
I went to a church the other day. I go to church. I didn't go today because I was ill and my girlfriend was visiting her parents. But I had a minister once, some church, I don't know which one it was, said, "Is the house white or brown?" And the correct answer was yes. Man is limited, can only see one side of the fence. The fence might be painted 2 different colors. You can't tell that. God, in my universe, is not at war with anything. It's man that polarizes him into duality.
Why is that?
Our limitations of what we can see in the color of the house.
I mean, a while back when you were talking, I was coming up with this idea of consciousness, and I was using it. I was using an analog with processors using computers. The earlier ones came up with 8-bit word bits, and then they had 16 and 32.
64. You'll notice it's always on a dodecahedral.
But my point is that this duality that you're saying, we're working in, is that because our resolution of handling information is being squeezed through this duality?
Yeah, it's a filter. Yeah, that's a type of filter that uniquely defines us as human.
So whenever we're trying to understand something, it's either going to either or, this or that, this or that, and this or that. We keep doing this or that until we advance to a level where we can actually get to a higher level and not have to go into duality, but something else.
That is correct. I remember when I was going through hypnotherapy and becoming a hypnotherapist, and you had to go through it. And usually people want to, reframe something so you go back to childhood and revision it. And that's how you use hypnotherapy to overcome fear or change a habit or a belief system. But of course, in most hypnotherapy courses now, everybody wants to go into a past life. So my professor decided, well, if we're going to go into a past life, why don't we do a future life? And the problem is, when I did that with him, because of my memory, I came out remembering when I was human and what I was in the future life. And the future life saw me in a vehicle of some form with two other individuals, not a single person, like the Tree of Life has the hermit and the lovers. I was part of a triad, a different level of going into a thing that had a word for it called Sachkan as a geometric universe. This is what helped me write that paper, was the dodecahedral universe, was from this experience of experiencing a future life and having traceable memory to the present moment.
I had a dream one time where, as I was waking up, I was remembering the dream. It was like a slow wake up, and as I woke up, it was squeezing off in consciousness, right? But what I did remember was, at what point I was looking at myself, and I got it both as me looking at the other person and the other person looking at me all at once. So I saw it as two people.
The third person witnessing.
I saw it as two people and as one person at the same time. And I thought that was kind of fascinating.
It's all a question of perception. And one of the reasons I also became a Jungian psychotherapist. Stephen Kaplan Williams has written an exceptional book called The Jungian Senoi Dream Manual, where he has studied from the Senoi point of view that certain dream states contain more reality than consciousness does. And in fact, that's a Hopi concept. It is. They call it dream time, and a place that you aspire toward with consciousness. And that is part of what I discuss in the non-local mind. Stephen Kaplan Williams' works. Of course, Ira Progoff wrote a very good and important one on honest journaling and trying to capture that moment before you've squeezed it off in your writings, because what that is what Aleister Crowley would call magical memory. It's a snapshot of that moment, which is different than where you are at this moment. And to go back and review that moment with this moment gives you a dialogue of language with yourself that allows you to evolve. And that's another tool that I use, honest journaling.
I often wonder, though, about this, evolving and evolution and all that real-time stuff.
I love, by the way, what you're doing with your screen. That's very cool, man, where you actually have visuals right at the moment.
Well,
and didn't prepare them earlier.
No, while you're talking, I'm able to, get items, and I put it up there so that people can see this, and then hopefully, at the end, I put them all in the description so that people can look it up. But I'll tell you right now, people who are listening, don't depend on me putting all this stuff in the description.
But you're doing a wonderful job. Nobody else does this at this point. I mean, John Wells, all of them. It's you're doing wonderful, James. I one of the reasons you and I have become very close friends. I like you. Your mind works very cool, and I miss Chicago.
I don't miss Chicago. I'd rather be over where you're at, but
Oh, I'd like to be on your motorcycle that you just bought. How's that sound? We go to Sturgis together or something.
it would be very uncomfortable driving out to Sturgis on that motorcycle, let me tell you. I mean, it's a nice bike and everything like that, and I like it. It's my fantasy bike, but it's not very practical.
Yeah, I had a Bonneville when I was a kid. I was part of the Iron Lords out of Tacoma, and I loved my Bonneville.
I think I could. Let me see if I can find this here. I'm here's where I start to fail with my real time stuff because we're talking about things, and I'm trying to. There we go.
Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes Benz? I watched her and Raquel Welch do an interview one time. That was pretty cool. That's a very nice looking ride.
Yeah, that's the how I have it set up.
Little scooter there, you just go scoot around.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody on a motorcycle that doesn't have scars. That's one of the reasons I stopped riding my bike. I lost mine at 55 miles an hour on the freeway once. Walked away from it.
Ouch.
Well, it hit water. It had rained and it beaded. And that bike, when it hit that water, it was gone.
Yeah.
And I remember I had leather on, so I skid across the freeway with keeping my feet up in the air so I wouldn't tumble. And the leather was worn out, and I considered myself lucky.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely a fair weather rider here. I'm not hardcore, and if it's even going to possibly rain, I'm not even, I don't even do it. So
they're extremely dangerous. My 280Z is like that. It's very light car. I have a 76 280Z, and that's what I drive. And let me tell you, when it rains, if I go into a spin, I'm out of control. Whereas if it's dry, I can go into a four-wheel drift and have complete control of that vehicle.
What color is it?
English racing green. It was the car that won the steeplechase up Ford Pikes Peak for the Ford Racing Team.
I don't know if this is this green? Is this
No, that's not green. That's blue.
Right, I'm not too good with colors.
I have
Oh, here we go.
There it is, right there. Yep, that's my car. There it is. That's what mine looks like. I have inky wheels like that one, and I have no bumper. That bumper on the front end is gone, and I don't have a bumper on the back. Mine's set for racing, and I had special. I didn't have conies. I went to design my own shocks so that I could hard as a rock. I have pictures of my Z. I'll send you a copy of my Z. It's very special. It was at that time the fastest car in the world, and I've kept it. I've got 300,000 miles on the engine, and the ports are running within 15 pounds each one. True.
Oh, I see it's going so fast it can't even. It's blurry.
Rated from cross-sectional frontal area to brake horsepower. They're rated at 147, and mine was clocked at 168 at Pacific Raceways one time. I had mine up to 168 miles an hour. And and the spoiler on the rear that I have actually pulls it at around 95 miles an hour. It starts to pull that car right straight down for better traction. And so I have complete control, and it runs best at around 120 miles an hour.
Yeah, well, where do you go 120 miles an hour with that thing?
Nowhere. I'm an old man now. I just like to show off once in a while. That car is not fun to drive. It invites you to drive it, is a quote from someone that helped do some work on that, an old Navajo friend, Ben Zarkor. That car is probably the finest car I've ever had in my life. I've had Mercedes. I've had other vehicles. I had some special Fords, 312 engines that had been bored out. And I tell you, that 280Z I have, the nicest car I've ever driven.
Now, is it running on? Did you say something like you made it run on alcohol, or?
No, I don't have it. I can merge it over very simply because all cars will run cleaner on alcohol than they will petroleum. Gasoline is.
But isn't there more power per cubic liter or whatever in gasoline as opposed to alcohol?
Yes, it is. Yes, there is. Yes, that's why they went to gas. But alcohol is cleaner, and you can make it from strawberry leaf after you've finished your harvest. You can do it out of biomass, and so that's what all the automobiles that I know of, Ford motor used alcohol before gasoline.
So I mean, what would be so you'd have to you per explosion you'd have to either have some type of turbo to push more in there?
Well, what you do is you have a remix on that, like you do with fuel injection. That's what I have on mine. Mine's fuel injected. And then you have a small blower.
Okay, there's the blower. See, the blower you're going to...
Well, it's the air. It's what you're doing is you're balancing the air intake. That's what a blower does. And now you've got a perfect mix for the explosion. The thing I put out of it is transmissions. I've gone through a bunch of transmissions. The gearing in those are very soft, and synchro is usually the first thing that goes. And if you learn how to use it, you shift up and down rather than brake, and that'll wear out your transmission more. But that is the correct way to drive that vehicle. That's why Vern Huell gave it to me back in 1984. Said I was the only one that probably learned how. I used to autocross when I was in college, so that was my big deal. I had Triumphs and like my Bonneville, I had Triumphs and I had a MGB and a couple of other vehicles, but I tell you that I had a Spitfire. The Triumph back then, not the Triumph, the Datsun was per dollar spent, you got more bang for your buck. Porsche 911 couldn't touch it, and it was 9 times more money off the shelf. The Cabrera, which has got a wider wheelbase, is a little better designed, but it also costs 20 times more. I think
here you go. Here's some of the. If you're thinking about selling them, they're getting like 30.
No.
30 G's.
I'm in my car like Valhalla, man. It'll be the ship I go out with. How did they do that in that one movie where David Niven commits suicide at the end of days by driving his car over a cliff? I forget what that movie was. It was the first one on Apocalypse where they were on a submarine, and David Niven was in Australia driving a sports car to end his days. I forget what movie that was. It's about a submarine that goes to New York City and finds that it has gone back to the Stone Age. Long time ago movie.
I'm trying to look Guns N' Roses. No,
David Niven was in it, a couple of other actors. I can't remember who all it was. It's so long ago. But it's about a submarine that when the Earth ends, it's underwater, and then when it comes up, everything's gone.
Yeah, I'm looking at it's not. I'm not finding it.
It's old. It's old. It was back in the 60s. They made a book out of it. The one I'm doing now is The Postman. I'd like to talk about that for a brief moment.
Sure.
So what I'm doing now is sustainable lifeboats. And I have models across the country. In each state, I have at least 2 models. Up in Idaho is Peaceable Kingdom. Over in Colorado, we'll be in Arapahoe, taking an old missile silo, and making it into a bunker. And they're all different. And they all based around what you call permaculture and for farming and producing foods. And what I'm doing is setting up a network as the Postman. I think I sent you a script on the Postman from the book, not about Kevin Costner. The Postman in the book is like me. I'm a supercomputer with a tremendous amount of knowledge. And what I do is while everything goes back into warlords and savagery, this town in Corvallis, Oregon, evolves into the movie, The Postman. And it's a computer. And that's what I'm doing. I'm networking. And now I'm going to be doing one, knock on wood, up in Nanaimo. I'm talking about Winnipeg and others. So I'm building an infrastructure for if and when the grid goes down, we still have sustainable lifeboats. That would be a lifeboat with an oar. That's a SEAL project, by the way. SEAL Team 1. And we manage a bunker here in Grants Pass, and it's run maritime law. That means if the President of the United States shows up, he's a passenger, just like you would be. And there's lots of seats because this whole area is underground caverns, and they've been developed over the years like Goonies. I have one tunnel that goes from East Evans Creek in Merlin, or actually not Merlin, Rogue River, all the way down to Hyam in the middle of the Trinities. And the whole area is underground bunkers and tunnels. There's on the East Coast, you can go from Maine all the way down to Florida without ever even touching the surface. And in the Midwest, I did a couple of bunkers for Dennis Kucinich, included Wichita, where Arlo Guthrie, his daughter, and his granddaughter came out to sing to us. It was very cool, a real snapshot of Americana. And that's what I want to preserve. That's what I want to preserve as the postman, being the guy that brings the networking in from one bunker to the other, community, communes, whatever. I grew up in Growing Family out of Seattle. I was part of that commune. I was a young kid.
All right, while you were talking there, I was trying to find the David Niven thing, but no dice.
I think it's I can't remember. I'll find it. I'll find it and give you the movie. It's about the end of days, when a submarine comes back up and finds that the Earth has gone sideways.
I'd like to see that. I was getting things like Sea Wolves Around the World in 80 Days. I know that's not in either of them. The Way Ahead, that's not it either.
It was after that movie, by the way, just slightly after.
Yeah.
I forget who else is in that movie. A couple of major stars.
Yeah, I don't want to. I have it here. Yeah, I'll be looking about it, and and then right now I want to talk to you because you're here, and I can look for that later.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, if you find it, let me know what you found. You'll recognize it once you get the name. Yeah, and everybody will remember it, but I can't.
Yeah. So one of the things that seem to be going on at the present time is we have this high drama everywhere.
Yeah.
About everything, everywhere. I mean, whether it's government, business, it's all this high drama stuff. And I'm wondering, is the best thing to do simply to unplug from
problem. You have accurate news reporting the first hour, and by the 6th hour, the spin has taken over, and it's been distorted. And that's the media. There's a woman that shows this with the high school shootings where kids are hearing voices in their head. You take a kid on Prozac, there will always be a second handler that probably taps them with scopolamine. That was something we did the study on and how it works. There's always a second shooter. Even when the Batman movie, Las Vegas, Combine, all of them have a second shooter. And it's an unstable kid on meds. That's your pharmaceutical house doing its thing in our society. And then you have the deep state putting a spin on it. By the time the 6th hour reporting, CBS, NBC will not be talking the truth anymore. The first hour, the reporters try to pick it up. You'll notice the one down in Florida, they all heard second shooting. That's pretty straightforward what's going on. Most of these are being orchestrated, cause us to have fear and do gun control. And the way I like to put it, Yoda. I got a Yoda that wears a little hat like mine, and it says, "My gun you may have after I give you my bullets, I will." Over my dead body. And Chuck Norris has a son, Michael, that put out a brand new movie called Amerigeddon, where he talks about this farmer that gets visited by the Russians at his door wanting his weapons with Agenda 21, and where that goes downhill. Yeah, no, it's, they can try, but it isn't going to happen. It isn't going to happen here in Oregon. I carry a weapon. I wear it on my right out here. I have a concealed weapon as well, and I am a weapon. That's 3. And so, I'm a sleeper. I look like a sweet old man. But I got my little water pistol with ammonia. Squirt, squirt, squirt.
Yeah.
Listen, man, that'll stop a rabid dog in its tracks and make it want to go home and rethink its life. I learned that one when I was 10 years old, coming home from school, and the dog would always chase me down this big steep hill. And one day I came home bleeding from falling off my bike from the dog. My dad gave me the water pistol, and I hit that dog, and that dog never chased another bike down a hill. Never. Didn't hurt it, the dog. Made it wish it were dead. Imagine doing that over pepper spray in a supermarket. You will always find ammonia available as something left on the shelf that people don't want, just like bleach. And bleach is your friend. And I can show you how to make a weapon out of that, too.
Yeah, no, I got a story about ammonia. I was working at Burger King, and I'm 15. And they were told to go get the vinegar to do the windows, right? So I go in there, and there's 2 bottles. One's ammonia, one's vinegar. Don't know which is which. So I take one, open it up, and I go, and of course I picked the ammonia. And as I felt the flames going down into my lungs, and my and my complete nose just drained out immediately, I said, "I guess that's not the vinegar." Holy cow!
Yeah, ammonia is a very nice householder's weapon right out of the gate. And if you have a horde of zombie, use a water cannon. Whoosh!
Yeah, speaking of zombie now,
yeah, they're out there all right.
I mean, now, in the terms of an actual real zombie, I mean, I was talking to somebody about the reanimation of the body and using electricity as opposed to, but my problem is that once the body deteriorates, dies, in other words, that you won't be able to reanimate it with electricity alone. I mean, I don't know, maybe a little shake here, but to get up, to get up and walk and balance is complex. To stand and not fall, and I just can't see that really happening.
Well, they have where all of that came out was a Russian invention of a biohazard weapon, and it cores you so that I think our common metaphor is watching a bunch of high school students all walking in a line with their cell phones. They're engaged, but they're not here.
Well, yeah, I can see a radiation or something, and prions or whatever. I could see it.
Well, this is a virus thing that they have. The Russians have developed a weapon that will core you and make you act like a zombie.
Right. But you still die. If somebody shoots you in the chest, you die. It's not like no, you got to shoot them in the brain only because.
How did they put it in Hot Fuzz? For the common good.
Well, I mean, my point though is that people can have drugs and be superhuman to some degree and all that, but what all comes down to it.
Will do that for you. Imagine it being your daughter in a flaming automobile and watch what you can do. And it's not about adrenaline. It's going into an altered state, and in that state, different laws apply. And that's how an ant can lift 10 times its weight structurally.
Yeah, well, I mean, isn't it in terms of their physical structure is able to handle that because of the way they're designed?
Well, that's one argument. The other is that's not true. They're an exoskeleton and basically do not have the muscle groups that would allow them to lift that kind of thing structurally, and yet they do. How can they do that? Well, humans can do that also. when specific situations. And I am going to suggest that the study of all these different altered states, that's what my non-local mind is about, allows you access to other universes where the laws are different. And what I'm trying to do is map out the beginning of one universe and the end of another, so that you use them like a tools in a toolbox. That is why physics will become magic, and the study of these altered states, where it's advanced physics to the mystery school.
I'm looking at, waiting for you to turn into a walrus as I'm watching you.
I've got that sweatshirt available. We're going to put that up on the internet. We're going to start selling some T-shirts where I am you and you are me and I am the walrus.
Yeah.
Archetypally, we are all of the same cloth at some level of the hologram. And that's what distinguishes us from an ant or an alien. Humans are unique and have a tremendous gift that we're not at this time using.
What is that?
The altered states of consciousness. We fear them. People are afraid of them. You know, when a child says there's a boogeyman under my bed, that boogeyman exists.
I'm reading down in the chat room. There's a bunch of talk going on, and I'm looking for questions. This one person wants a Dr. Ram Yoda T-shirt.
No problem. I've got those. Helen Downs in Brisbane made them up. She's got them for sale. I think they're $5 or something. I don't know. But they've got a big picture of me saying, cuckoo, cuckoo, I am the walrus. I'm going to go for it because I need to do something besides my writings, because like workshops where I show up and they buy the book from me. The way you can determine whether or not the book came from me or not is everything I sell is autographed with a date on it when I autographed it. And each of those are going to be unique as I mature into the future. The older ones are going to have meaning, and the newer ones are going to have, this is when he came to the realization of netter new. And so anybody selling a book on Amazon or elsewhere new and does not have my signature, it is a bootleg. That is written in stone. I do not do mass market. I do not do discounts. I'm a small mom and pop. That's all I care to be. You can bootleg ebooks. I don't care. Audio, I'm trying to circumvent some of this just to get into Canada and England will cost me more to ship it than it will to the book itself.
Yeah, I've ran into those problems too. Shipping is outrageous. I got some questions.
Even with USPS, yeah.
Now, you did talk earlier about the C60 molecule in the for the body and all that, and so I wanted to mention to Steve, who was asking about the rat study in C60. You have talked about that several times. It's a big thumbs up for the C60 within the olive oil. Correct?
I'm going to be making that. We have a friend of mine, Dr. Valerie Olmsted in Sedona, that is making it from scratch correctly, and we will be marketing that. We will be marketing pharmaceutical mushrooms, blue-green algae off of Klamath Lake. There are what I call power foods for the 21st century, and I'll be marketing those as a side thing in the next year. This year, right now, I have just started a free download library of rare manuscripts in history on the field of metaphysics and magic. And that right now I've got 3,000 different PDFs for download that are old books on magic and other things that I used for my lectures when I did my audiobooks in metaphysics at Harvard. That's because I want to provide the resources I use so you can go to them and come to your own conclusions on opinions that I quote from different books on magic. The Greater Keys of Solomon, the second sentence in that says, ownership is enhanced when shared with another. That's where it's all about, sharing your knowledge base. And that's where I feel I've been blessed. I'm going to try to share my awareness of knowledge, and you're welcome to share your bank account.
Let me ask you a question.
I mean, that's, at some point, how much money does someone need?
Right.
And why? Power? Power is an enemy of man. And that's Castaneda. I was part of all of that in the early 60s when these were being written at Berkeley. I have to tell you that now I experience the fourth enemy of man, old age. Too old to do anything about it. But I can share what I do know with the millenniums. I would not want to be a millennium now. What a terrible burden there.
Well, let me cut in here because I'm getting a flow of questions. And
okay, sure.
They're asking about your hat and the symbol on top of it. What is the symbol?
Let's see.
Naval intelligence. In God we trust. What is?
Look at the logo.
What is
God
that?
we trust. All others we monitor. You'll notice it had an eye in the triangle, very similar to the one I'm wearing around my neck. But mine around my neck was my great-grandfather's. I'm part of Zurich's Waldorf schools, and I mentor for Waldorf out of Zurich. And I have a 12-year-old doing his doctorate at Cornell in organic chemistry. What could I possibly do to help that kid?
So no. Back to the hat. Back to the hat for a second. Is that an official insignia? That's the Navy intelligence signal. Okay. Yes. All right. Insignia. All right.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Right. Yeah, in God we trust. All others we monitor.
Yeah. That's the Navy logo, man. Navy intelligence logo. Navy intelligence is not Navy. Navy intel is hired guns like me that are not part of the Navy, but under employment. And I'm a GS-18.
How about how have you ever been in Dulce, New Mexico?
In where?
Dulce. There's an underground base, Dulce, D-U-L-C-E.
Dulce, New Mexico. No, I have not been in Dulce, New Mexico. I've been to Monte Gringo in Mexico City, and there is some catacombs there in the prison. Let me tell you, man. And you go down near Popo, and what is it? In Puebla, Mexico, where they're unearthing the Clovis culture. And I'm looking at this big dig that they're doing, and then over on that mountain, they're doing another dig. The damn thing is bigger than New York City and was more complex than New York City. And this was a culture that when they crawled out of a cave became the Hopi. I can tell you that culture had starflight. They were space flight. You can go into France in the Cave of Dreams, and you're looking at this bison, and there's little dots around its eyes. And on closer inspection, you realize it's a star map. And then going further south in France, there's the same star map in reverse, which means they witnessed it from space. And what I used to do when I taught at Georgetown, I taught a course in Georgetown on demonology, on the lesser keys of Solomon, the Goetia, the 72 Lemegeton, where I have equated 68 of the 72 demons, Beelzebub, Ashtaroth, those guys, as from Babylonian star maps. And what I did that made the Jesuits want that course was I equated the changes in the star maps with changes of the sigil and the squares that are used to have control of the demon because you have the demon's name. And that What is a demon? A demon is a lesser part of you deemed unworthy, like your shadow. That's the way they talk about it in psychology, the projection of the shadow. In order to see something evil or wrong in someone means that it has to exist in you to be able to see it in another. And you might call these different demons anger, jealousy, rage. That's what they were in Babylonian periods. They were qualities in man deemed unworthy. That's what a demon is. Now, a devil is something different, and that's led to such things as the Stargates and some of the studies I did with the secret tradition of the Yazidi. And yes, I did those paranormal studies for the military. And yes, we did not at that time have the Stargate. That's when the first Bush went into Iraq, because that's where that artifact was up in the northern part of Iraq and in the underground caverns there. And the only reason the first Bush they couldn't find it. The second Bush, his son, went in with tomography, and that's when he got on board that ship with all his medals and everything. And we got it. The war's over, and then of course they continued the war until now, even. But because war is good for business, and but the whole thing is a sham. And what the public knows and what's really going on, even I don't know. I'm just a nerd. I can tell you what I know, the part I know about it. The Stargate. What is a Stargate? There are two of them, and the second one has not yet been found. And my guess is that's why both the north and south magnetic poles are moving toward each other somewhere in the Indian Ocean, is where you'll find the second Stargate. And that's because of a physics that we don't talk about much called cosmobiology. That came out of Prague during the 70s, and the psychic discoveries behind the Iron Curtain concept with Ostrander and Schroeder. The actual Stargates are transport systems where in the Church of Rome, Joseph Isaiah wrote about it, called devil worship, where there were these demons tumbling out of a door. And we immediately knew that was an artifact because the devil didn't exist pre-Christian. And the Yazidis are a tribe up in the northern part of Iraq that worship these demons because they were probably alien, porting out. I don't know how we got to Mars, because you can't do it with a spacecraft, but I think that's the reason. I'm going to play a game on you here. I'm going to say that Nibiru has got a Dyson sphere around it. That's why the IR signature is wrong. And it's our future coming in to meet the moment. The blue and red Kachina sound like a redshift. And to collect the rent, because man didn't start on Earth. And that's all in metaphor, but think about it and where that takes you in terms of what is about to happen, the so-called end of days. And now what you have is an opportunity, not something to fear.
Right. Well,
Did you all get that?
Yeah.
I can't quite say it, so I have to do it in metaphor. Did y'all get it?
How about Antarctica? There's a bunch of stuff coming out of there.
I've been to Antarctica. I was not there under my flag. I was under working for an anthropologist. She was the lead. I saw the Nazi base there. They used to stage on an island off of Brazil going in, and we went in through a sub, and there's caverns in there that are a mile high. They have weather and wind and the whole Earth, Middle Earth, Hollow Earth. It's all hollow. There's caverns everywhere, like where I am here in Oregon. That was interesting because I saw a Viking base from the 14th century. Where's that in the history books? And then there was this gigantic hole going straight down 100 miles into the cavern, into the center of the molten lava, and where what we think is molten lava be plastic. How did it retain its integrity? I don't know. And at the time in the 70s when I went there, we had no technology that could get us down that deep and straight down. I believe that when Buzz Aldrin went to visit, and I know Buzz, that they discovered something down there, and they were showing all the heads of state, and then all of a sudden there was a big curfew. Antarctica was being evacuated, and that's because I think something woke up. Now, I have no idea what that was, but I can guess from Occam's razor, it's probably Nephilim, giants in stasis. I don't know, and I don't have a clue what we are. I know that I can sometimes get access to previous and future lives using hypnosis or altered states of consciousness. And that would suggest that this place here is a dream. And there are tribes like that. My girlfriend just arrived. Hi, honey. That may imply something more going on here with what we are and what we are not. I don't know. And I don't work in that field, but I have actually seen skulls that were much larger. And when you talk about Anasazi and the Hopi, they will talk about the giant cannibals. Food chain, like we talked about earlier.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's all in metaphor, but, it's interesting and humbles me to realize this song isn't about me. It's about David Bowie. Just kidding. Carly Simon. I thought this song is about us.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
You're so vain. Yeah, you're so vain.
Yeah.
Now, I guess we'll go. I'll give you one more question, and you have to get ready for your thing and your ladies there.
I have to take
But one of the problems I have with like Jump Room to Mars and all that stuff is that if you're going to go outside of the physics of space-time, how do you keep the container from, dissolving or exploding? I mean, you'd have to keep us inside this container.
Oh, no. What? Okay. Here is the bad news on all of that. The CERN project is basically a rapid transit system to Fermilabs in Chicago. And what comes out the other end is a clone. It's not you. What does that suggest? We're dealing with physics now that we don't actually have a model on. And so I don't know where to go with this at this point. I don't know what it means. Why did I lose you?
I'm here.
There you are. I checked out something and then went somewhere. I don't know what this all means, except that when you go into a black hole, what happens to the structure in water?
Well, you go into a black hole as a human being, you're destroyed before you even go into the black hole because of the forces.
It is that comes out the other side. It is a reflected wave, like a cavitation process, that's a clone of you. And now clones and cyborgs and machines are a place that are now supposedly our future with transhumanism and the concepts of the next evolution in man's consciousness. And I'm going to suggest that there's a difference between a clone and you. And so I'm not sure what that means any more than that drop of water is no longer a drop of water, it's a bubble. So we're dealing with areas of metaphysics that I am trying to explore, and I just simply don't have the vocabulary.
I'll take that example about this mass transit that the clone comes out the other side. I look at it and go, it's all malarkey. I think that's all like science fiction. I mean, it's.
That's where it all starts. A replicator became a 3D printer. It starts with the imagination. Science fiction becomes science fact. That's where it all starts. Imagination.
Yeah,
I know it's something that's difficult to comprehend, and why we enjoy science fiction movies to see how they're going to end.
yeah, because science fiction, any kind of fiction, you can make anything possible, but reality, there are limits.
That's because this reality has its basic assumed truths and definitions, and the multiverse is wide open for business.
Well, we do know there's one reality. That's true. You're going to get a test tomorrow, and I'm going the day after. So let me let you go.
Me. Yeah.
Yeah, let me let you go, and you can.
It's been an honor again with you, James. I just so much enjoy just being with you.
Yeah, I like talking to you. You're fun, and see, a lot of guys who have your kind of knowledge are all stuffed shirt, arrogant, whatever, and you're like
stuffed shirt. I'm arrogant.
You're like a big kid. I mean, you're fun, and it's good to talk to you. People like to hear this. You're one of the guests I have that people look forward to and watch for months afterwards.
Yeah. Stay tuned, and thank you for having me. Truly, thank you for listening, all of you fans. You have no idea how it helps me want to continue going on.
And you help us to continue go on. And then please, people, if you like Doc Ram, you go to his website. There's all kinds of books and stuff. I mean, he's doing all these things. And
I'm a MacGyver. I like to live in the woods, and I know how to use the plants. That's what I am, MacGyver.
Yeah, I mean, if I have a chance to get out of town before hits the fan, you're the guy I'd pick.
I'm announced out to the Oregon beaches. You have to drive through the redwoods. I love where I live. It's beautiful here. It's a little drier than Washington or Canada, but I'm very blessed to be able to live and have what I have. Thank you all.
Well, you take care, and we will talk again. And I hope everything turns out all right in your test. And
I think I'll be fine. Yeah, I think I'll be fine. They're just going to clean me out, check things out.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually get a tattoo in my colon. So when people, that's what the doctor said. He's going to put some markings in there for future reference. And so when people say to me now, "Hey, do you have a tattoo?" I said, "Yeah." Can I see it? Well, that's a little more difficult.
A special kind of scope, huh?
Yeah. So we'll see you again next time. And
Roger.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. There we go. Richard Alan Miller, one of a kind. Yeah, people are already saying they can't wait till returns. Well, he will. I mean, we can do this, and I like talking to him. It's fun. So it's really good to do this because I get to talk to him, and you get to talk to him, at least, hand information to ask questions. So right now we have Les Visible, and then we're going to call it an evening. So let's get on to Les and do this.
Greetings, my friends, and welcome to Dog Poet Transmitting and the Saucer Pod. Greetings from the Arcturian Brotherhood and the Sirius Cluster. One day we shall meet. This is the time of Mr. Apocalypse, a time of transformation and great changes. We know, who knows, what might transpire in a time like this. The days pass, one into the other. I wonder how much this impacts on the rest of you. Do you feel the powerful force of routine, shutting down the extemporaneous and upbeat assurance of what is possible? Being left with unyielding margins and parameters that perforce should be pushed outward. It's a chore, my friends. For myself, there are all these creative projects that insist upon engagement, and I'm held in a kind of frozen limbo. Perhaps only prayer and faith will suffice, and I intend to follow through with that, and may the good and compassionate Lord see fit to make it real for me. That which is a certitude given the necessary attention. My friends, all of my life I have labored for self-improvement. I've constantly disappointed myself in my reckless behavior, with my undisciplined lack of focus and my often willful disregard of a balanced and steady perspective. It has taken time and a great deal of pain for me to awaken to what is needed from me. I know that I've let people down more than once who have come to these blogs over the last 16 years, and also those whom I have visited on occasion and those who have visited me. My excuse is that I'm not going to permit people to label me as the avatar and a guru, which has happened probably a lot more than you might imagine. I know because I was there, and I am a bit of a way shower and a reservoir of certain information granted to me by the ineffable for the purpose of sharing with others, but I am not yet at a place where I would know that I am an unshakable font of timeless wisdom. This may come in time. It could well happen in this life, but it has not yet happened. I'm not going to lie to myself, and I'm not going to lie to you. Subsequently, I behaved badly. I didn't see any way out. I didn't quite know what I was supposed to do when people were laying all of these terms on me, and it got downright embarrassing and even frightening. And so I behaved badly because I thought for sure this will be an indication to them that I am not the avatar and that I am not a guru. However, it is true that God very often uses crazy people, mentally dysfunctional people, idiot savants. This is in the nature of God. There are a lot of crazy people who are God lovers. And so in that case, I suppose an argument can be made for me. But I have been around gurus. I have been around great teachers. And the difference between them and me is significant. Now, arguably, there might have been a better way for me to handle this. And for those of you that I've offended, I heartily apologize. I didn't know what else to do. And so subsequently, I alienated some people. But the interesting thing is that though I have forgiven everyone who behaved badly toward me, not one of these people that I am aware of have forgiven me. I don't quite understand that. Now, of course, you may say that most all of the fault was on my part, but this is not the truth. And given how some of them behaved in the aftermath, it is certainly not true. I've had people attempt to send me to prison for life. I've had people attempt to have me killed. I've had people go to the police and create an entire fiction saying I was a major dealer of illegal products, and they did it in order to get a plane ticket off the island. They were actually living in my house. I was feeding them, I was taking care of them. That's always been my nature. It used to be on every holiday, Thanksgiving or Christmas, I'd always go and invite those people that had nowhere else to go to come to my house for a meal and a little bit of fellowship. That doesn't make me any kind of a great guy. A lot of people do this sort of thing. But that's kind of how I am. And yet these people, I don't know if it was jealousy or envy. See, I don't really have those two things. I got other shortcomings, but those two I don't have. And when you don't have certain things, you maybe don't notice them so much in others. In fact, they say life is a mirror, and many of us project our shortcomings onto others, thinking we see in them the very same thing that is resident in us. I've observed this in operation. This one fellow, Jim, I don't remember his last name, He went to the police, and this was along with Rick Glover, this black bass player whom I had brought over to Hawaii, put him in my house for 2 months, fed him, helped him pass the police department test, and helped him get on the Maui Police Department. But then he did several bad things and I tossed him out of my house, which was a little courageous on my part because the guy was a kung fu expert. But I get in a certain state, I don't really care, and I have some ability in those things myself. Anyway, he was so incensed by what he considered my ill treatment of him that he went to the police department and told them the same thing. So when he heard about this guy, Jim, had come in and said this, then he threw himself into the mix and they started to set up a sting on me. Then this guy, Jim, come to my house and tell me that he had fallen afoul of these cocaine dealers and that they were going to kill him unless he could make up the shortfall for what he owed them. The story was at this time there wasn't any on Oahu. This guy who said he was a restaurant owner, but was a policeman, had flown over. Jim made the introductions. I thought I was saving Jim's life. It turned out I was arrested and facing 60 years mandatory in prison. Now the whole tale would take a considerable amount of time to relate, but it was remarkable. The presence of God in the drama was unbelievable. I mean, things were happening that it should have been made into a movie, and maybe one day it will. And I am, to this day, the only person in the history of Hawaiian law who was able to prove entrapment and be acquitted. I mean, God was literally in that courtroom. Nobody gave me a prayer because Hawaii is full of first-generation immigrants, Filipinos, Japanese. These are people that take a very dim view of certain kinds of behavior. And so Hawaii had the highest conviction rate in the nation. And no one gave me a prayer. I remember when they were announcing the verdict, I don't know exactly how I did this, my lawyer, Bruce Metz, who had been a mob lawyer in Detroit, but had a very bad problem with alcohol, did a geographic to the islands thinking that he could run away from it, which you can't. And I fired my lawyer and his advice. And so they appointed me someone from private community, and he had just arrived. So he was a very competent person. When the verdict was announced, I turned around and grabbed him around the waist and just lifted him straight up in the air. Now, he weighed about 180 pounds. And it was one of those kind of things where you see where a mother will lift the car right off the child. These things have happened. There's documented evidence of it. Oh, it's been quite a life, my friends. But the amount of betrayal and treachery has been something else. And I don't know exactly why this happened to me, except that it gave God the chance to demonstrate his power. And according to your faith is it done unto you. And this did happen for me. After that, all these people were all trying to do the same defense in Maui. And it didn't happen for any of them. And my lawyer became a very wealthy man because it was 10 grand a pop and more for him to run these defenses that didn't come to any good issue, unfortunately. So he started getting in trouble, stopping the cops, drunk in his car, and more falling outs with the government process. So finally he left the islands on another geographic, and he went to Kentucky, where I think he kind of got his act together. But he was very strange to me. It's almost as if he didn't want to talk to me. Maybe he couldn't believe what had happened, because certainly in his experience, nothing like that had ever happened before either. Okay, my friends, I've just been chattering away, but maybe there's been some kind of an answer here. Don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to others. Well, we've come to the end of another broadcast. You'll see me next week, if there is one. Be true to yourself, my friends. That said, Micham Amdu Guru Bawa. La ilaha illa Allahu. Much love, Lady Nature. Hail, Lord Jesus Christ. Hare Krishna. Greetings, my friend Amitabha Buddha. Greetings, my dear friend Lord Ganesh. Carry on, Baha'u'llah. Aloha and Aru. May you all have a beautiful and blessed day, my friends. And may the ineffable enter into your life and become awake and aware in you in this incredible time period we are in.